Hi everybody and welcome to Mysteries of Sleep World. You are lying there nestled into the comfort of your pillow, maybe with your blanket just slightly tucked under your chin. But outside your window, something's wrong. The light creeps in before your alarm. Too early, too bright. Your eyelids don't stand a chance. You blink up at a ceiling painted in the color of blinding daylight, and your brain groggily ponders, is that the sun? Yes, it is, and it's twice as big, twice the rage, twice the fireball, double the trouble. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and your local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crack open the curtains a second time and there it is. The sky is screaming light. Birds haven't sung. They're not confused. They're horrified. Trees cast shadows in the wrong direction. And that warm golden tone you expect from a sunrise? Gone. What hits your eyes now is sharp, white blue, unfiltered, obscene. It takes mere seconds before your skin feels it. Not a pleasant warmth, but a needling sizzle as though you've walked into a microwave that politely refuses to shut off. Car roofs blister by mid-morning. Pavement smells like someone left a tire fire smoldering in your neighborhood. You step outside and you instantly regret your optimism. Solar radiation doesn't just get brighter, it gets nastier. Ultraviolet light now dances on your skin like a rude guest who never heard of SPF. You could practically hear the melanin in your cells throwing up its hands. You slap on sunscreen, but good luck, it's evaporating before you finish the second arm. Here's the kicker. Doubling the sun's diameter means it's not just twice as wide, it's 8 times more massive. That's how volume scales. With great girth comes great gravity. And you're just a fragile sack of water standing on a pale blue dot that now orbits a monster. Historians still argue whether ancient Mesopotamians believed eclipses were the sun being swallowed or merely going on vacation. Either way, they understood its power, and you're about to experience it firsthand. You glance at your phone, it says 7:22 a.m., but already your living room feels like a sauna that's also somehow a tanning bed. Air conditioners hum louder than usual if they work at all. The power grid's clinging on like a caffeinated intern during finals week. Out the window, a neighbor's inflatable pool is melting. Not deflating, melting. And the grass? You remember when it was green? Now it's the shade of potato chips left in a parking lot. It's not just the heat. The color of light has shifted. Everything's tinted just a little off. You start to wonder if the world is photoshopped now. Your coffee steams violently, and you swear it got bitter between sips. Ancient Egyptians worshipped Ra, the sun god, floating across the sky in a golden bark. Today, you'd pay good money for Ra to tone it down a notch. Maybe trade in his solar yacht for a nice, shady gondola. You reach for sunglasses, but realize even the darkest pair doesn't cut it. The light pierces through. You feel it in your teeth. You wonder what else will be affected. Crops, obviously. Your sleep schedule, definitely. Your will to go outside for more than 90 seconds? Already gone. But strangely, the animals notice first. The squirrels didn't show up. No pigeons, not even mosquitoes, and they usually love this kind of chaos. The dog next door howled until sunrise and now hides under a deck, trying to become one with the shadows. And the shadows, oh, the shadows. They're longer, darker, with razor edges. No more soft blurs or dappled tree light. Everything is either scorched with brightness or plunged into suspicious gloom. You step back indoors just to be safe, and possibly to cry a little. You switch on the news. Of course it's bad, but worse than you expected. Governments are confused. Scientists are stunned. Social media is a carnival of conspiracy theories and memes. Someone's already blamed 5G, another's blaming Atlantis. In the background, a weatherman sweats through his suit while trying to explain unprecedented solar anomalies using a plastic sun model in what appears to be sheer panic. One network quietly rolls out the headline, Day 1 of the double sun. That's comforting. Some fringe circles are celebrating, though. A few groups claim this is the ascension light. One TikTok astrologer insists the sun doubling is linked to Mercury being in retrograde. You give her 5 minutes before she too melts. Modern science has no answer. Not yet. But history is full of solar curiosities. In 1859, the Carrington event caused global auroras and fried telegraph systems. People thought it was the apocalypse. This makes Carrington look like a warm hug. Meanwhile, you pour yourself some orange juice and realize it's hot. From the fridge, that's not supposed to happen. Either the sun is heating your kitchen or physics is quitting on us. You sit down, drenched in sweat, clutching a lukewarm beverage and listening to the whine of overworked electronics. Somewhere, the ice cream trucks are declaring bankruptcy. And through it all, you can't help but wonder if this is just the beginning. What's coming next? The day drags on, though it hardly feels like a day anymore. More like a high-definition pressure cooker set to broil. You shuffle from one shaded corner to another, hoping the sun forgets you exist. Spoiler, it doesn't. Your home, once a refuge, now plays the part of a reluctant greenhouse. Curtains aren't helping. Windows are now liabilities. You drape everything in bed sheets like you're preparing for an exorcism. The exorcism of the sun. Outside, it's not just hot, it's wrong. The heat is deep, relentless, the kind that cooks you from the inside out. Like your blood is simmering. Birds don't sing. The breeze, if you can even call it that, feels like a hairdryer set to personal revenge. You try breathing through your nose. Mistake. It burns. Feels like you just inhaled toast straight from the oven. Within hours, plants shrivel to parchment. Petunias? Gone. Rose bushes? Charred matchsticks. Your neighbor's garden, the one he won't stop posting about, is now a sad buffet of fried zucchini leaves. He hasn't come out to mourn it, probably for the best. You remember learning about how cacti survive in the desert by storing water? You glance at one on your windowsill. It's weeping. That feels symbolic. The heat is bad, but the humidity is worse. Moisture tries to evaporate but gets trapped in the air like it's stuck in a sweaty elevator with too many people and no escape button. You're marinating in your own exhaustion. Electric grids flicker. You open the fridge for a cool breeze and close it 2 seconds later out of guilt. It's trying its best. Your phone is hot to the touch, like it just had an awkward FaceTime with the sun. Meanwhile, the media is losing its collective mind. Satellite images show Earth's atmosphere swelling as if the entire planet just ate something it's allergic to. Climate models? Useless. Weathermen are throwing dice and crying in their cars. Historians still argue whether the Great Fire of London in 1666 was an urban accident or divine punishment. Either way, your city is heading for its own crispy chapter. Asphalt buckles underfoot. Road paint bubbles up like cheese on a pizza. Someone tries to jog. You mentally write their eulogy. Then come the fires. Small at first trash bins, dry hedges, the occasional unfortunate squirrel. But they spread like gossip. Emergency services are overwhelmed. Sirens welling through neighborhoods that now smell like barbecue and plastic regret. You think about Australia's 2019 bushfires or the Great Peshtigo Fire of 1871, which turned an entire Wisconsin town into ash overnight. Those were caused by nature and lightning. This is just the sun flexing, even underground isn't safe. Subway systems bake like steam rooms. Basements? Slightly less awful, but you're not exactly thriving down there either. Some buildings try sealing off the top floors entirely. A few companies pivot to full remote work, because who wants to commute when your steering wheel can double as a branding iron? You walk into your kitchen to get ice. There isn't any. The ice maker sighs and produces 2 lukewarm cubes before giving up entirely. You chew them like they're rare diamonds. The heat brings its friends dehydration and delirium. You sip water constantly, but it's never enough. The human body wasn't built for this. You consider just standing in the shower, but the pipes groan as water evaporates midair. All that's left is steam and existential dread. Suddenly, things that were once reliable begin to betray you. Electronics short circuit. Wi-Fi routers gasp their final beeps. You check your smart thermostat, it's blank. Your smart speaker plays one final lo-fi playlist before powering off like a dying android. You whisper goodbye. Outside animals start acting weird. Some disappear entirely. Others come too close. Raccoons limp down sidewalks in daylight, dazed. A family of squirrels migrates through your yard like furry refugees. You nod at them with solidarity. The human body's heat tolerance maxes out around 107.6 degrees. Cities across the globe are surpassing this. Regular people, construction workers, postal carriers, they're all at risk. Governments issue sun curfews. Going outside between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. is considered reckless, like wearing wool to a volcano. And let's talk about the sunburns. This isn't a oops, forgot sunscreen burn. This is your skin cells filed HR complaints territory. People are wrapping themselves in aluminum foil not to cook, but to reflect. It's not working. Fashion bloggers are now recommending blackout curtains as cloaks. You consider wearing yours to the grocery store. Still, fringe inventors are having their moment. One guy on TikTok builds a solar reflective suit made from car sunshades and duct tape. He gets 12 million views and third-degree burns. Sleep becomes a fantasy. Nights are too warm, too bright. Sweat-soaked pillows become the norm. You flip your pillow for the cool side, only to realize it's just the other side of the same sweaty tragedy. People start moving. Temporarily, they say, just until it cools down. But it won't. Not with the sun now 8 times more massive, gravitationally more aggressive, and still glowing like it's late for something. And still you look up. You can't help it. There it is. The sun, bloated and brilliant, looming larger than it should. So pretty, so terrifying, like staring at the crown jewel of a god who just remembered Earth owes him rent. You survive the day somehow, but as the sun reluctantly sinks below the horizon, it leaves behind an Earth that's steaming like a giant compost pile. You hoped for relief after sunset. You were wrong, because now the oceans begin to talk back. The sea, which once lulled you with soft waves and salt-scented breezes, has changed its tone. It's angry, boiling in places, or at least beginning to. You live inland, but even you can feel it. Humidity thick as chowder, salt tang clinging to the air. And the news? It's worse than usual. You stare at the TV as footage rolls of the Pacific's surface shimmering unnaturally, like someone threw gasoline on it. Water temperatures are climbing fast. Coral reefs, already fragile, bleach overnight. Fish are trying to flee vertically. Sharks crowd deeper waters, confused and cranky. You mutter something about sushi becoming extinct. And then weather, the new kind. You thought you understood storms. Rain, thunder, the occasional smug lightning bolt. But now the sun's doubled radiation is supercharging everything. Storm cells swell like overcooked dumplings. Winds don't whisper. They scream. Raindrops arrive like shotgun pellets, fast, hard, and completely unsatisfying. Flash storms sprout in random places. One hits downtown Miami, raining so hard it strips paint off cars. Another strikes rural Mongolia, ripping through yurt villages with winds that flip livestock like angry pancakes. Historians still argue whether the Great Flood of China around 1931 was purely meteorological or worsened by political mismanagement. Either way, the scale was staggering. This is global. Cyclones start forming in bizarre places, one near Portugal, another in Alaska. Tropical storm rules are rewritten every 6 hours. Weather apps give up entirely, simply displaying ptastotsus. You think about hurricanes, the beautiful, terrifying spirals your science teacher once described as heat engines. Well, with the ocean now acting like a kettle left on high, the fuel supply is endless. These new storms, some are the size of small continents. You watch satellite footage and as one begins spinning in the Indian Ocean, wind speeds so high that even planes are being diverted 5 countries away. Meanwhile, closer to home, ordinary rainstorms become mood swings with thunder tantrums. Lightning flashes brighter, longer, hitting places it's never touched before. A bolt zaps a traffic light in your city. It glows green for 6 hours and causes a minor scooter uprising. The rain doesn't cool anything. It steams on contact with the ground. Puddles hiss, streets exhale. You try to stand outside with an umbrella, but wind guts it instantly. You mourn its loss quietly and retreat inside. And it's not just dramatic weather, it's weird weather. You hear reports of pink snow in the Alps, acid fog in parts of northern Africa. In Australia, it rains frogs. Well, not literally, but toads are climbing trees, which is somehow worse. Fringe thinkers on social media claim Earth is rebelling, that Gaia, the Earth spirit, is trying to sweat out humanity like a bad fever. Others blame CERN. Someone blames Taylor Swift. You laugh, then stop, because laughing is too sweaty now. Water scarcity becomes a thing, ironically. Despite the rising seas, clean, cool drinking water is harder to find. Reservoirs are steaming, lakes shrink. Glaciers? They're done. Gone. Your phone pings with a water alert. The city's going to start rationing. You fill every pot, bottle, and Tupperware you own. You even fill your neighbor's vintage popcorn machine. Desperate times, the polar ice caps, which were already stressed like a college freshman during finals, start collapsing. Greenland becomes two-thirds swamp. Antarctica sheds ice chunks the size of Rhode Island. You watch a clip of penguins trying to adjust. One just sits down and screams. You relate. Sea levels creep up, then lunge. Coastal cities panic. Emergency sandbag sales skyrocket. Miami starts to look like Venice. Venice starts to look like Atlantis. People begin evacuating inland. Millions. Whole neighborhoods caravan north. Roads jam. National parks become impromptu refugee zones. Canada's population doubles overnight, and they're too polite to complain. You wonder what it's like for the animals, especially ocean life. Whale pods head into the Arctic Circle. Jellyfish thrive. Octopuses get grumpier than usual. Somewhere, a dolphin writes a complaint letter in sonar. Historians still argue whether the disappearance of the Minoan civilization was due to a volcanic eruption or the ensuing weather disruptions. Either way, extreme climate shifts have a track record of not playing nice with empires. And here you are, microwaving leftovers while the world sizzles outside. You check social media. There's a new viral phrase, sunburnt Earth. Hashtag global tan. People are joking because that's what people do when the end feels ridiculous. You see a meme of the Earth lounging in a tanning bed with sunglasses on, sipping magma from a coconut. You chuckle, then you cry. The kicker? This is just the start of the ocean crisis. The increased evaporation isn't just making storms, it's messing with the global thermohaline circulation, the great conveyor belt of ocean currents that balances our climate. If that shuts down or shifts, Europe freezes while the tropics broil, deserts bloom in Siberia, and the Amazon goes bald. Some scientists warn it could throw us into a chaotic feedback loop. Others say it might stabilize. Historians still argue whether Atlantis was destroyed by tectonics or arrogance. You finish a bottle of lukewarm water and lie down on the floor, which is only slightly cooler than the ceiling. You listen to the rumble of distant thunder and the gurgle of a drain overloaded by steaming runoff. This is the new normal now. Weather with a vengeance. Skies that can't make up their mind. Oceans that boil and storms that chase cities like they owe them money. And tomorrow, it'll probably rain fireflies. Or soup. Who knows anymore? Morning arrives, but it doesn't feel like a new day. It feels like the sequel to a bad dream. And today's theme? Gravity. That invisible buddy who's now had enough of the sun's attitude. You see, when the sun doubled in size, it didn't just turn up the heat. It bulked up, gained mass, got thick in cosmic terms. And that extra mass means stronger gravitational pull, which means Earth's orbit. No longer business as usual. You're no astrophysicist, but you remember enough from high school to know that a planet's orbit is a delicate dance between speed and gravity. Now it's like the music changed mid-step and Earth stumbled. In your kitchen, your glass of water trembles. You pause, and an odd dizziness washes over you, like the planet just tilted its head to pop its neck. You're not wrong. Earth's orbit is shifting, very subtly at first. A wobble here, a tug there. But scientists, those who still have working telescopes, are seeing it clearly. We're being pulled in, not all at once, not a dramatic spiraling death drop, but enough that orbital predictions are now scrawled in pencil instead of ink. Historians still argue whether the Mayan long count calendar was just a cultural tracker or a prophetic warning about celestial alignments. But if they saw this new sky, they might have sighed and said, "Told you so." The gravitational tug messes with more than orbits. Tides, for example. Already volatile thanks to boiling oceans, now swell to terrifying new highs. The moon tries to do its usual thing, pulling waves with its gentle lunar influence, but the sun shoves in like it owns the place. Result? Super tides, megatides, the kind that eat entire coastlines and spit out pier remains. You see videos of waves crashing over 10-story buildings. In Norway, a fjord empties and refills in one tidal lurch. In Florida, the ocean reaches downtown and politely starts browsing real estate. And it doesn't stop at water. The sun's new gravity starts affecting you. Your weight increases. Not a lot, maybe a few pounds, but enough to notice. Climbing stairs feels like you're wearing an emotional support anvil. Jogging? Forget it. You're out of breath from brushing your teeth too enthusiastically. It's not just your imagination. Gravity itself is stronger now. Earth, pulled slightly closer to the sun, is feeling that extra mass like a clingy X. Objects fall faster, jumps are lower. Sports? Ruined. Basketball becomes a game of bounce and weeps. Olympic pole vaulting? Canceled until further notice. Your friend texts you, "Bro, I can feel my bones." You nod, wincing at your knees. They haven't forgiven you since that two-step on TikTok last year. And with orbital decay comes time trouble. The closer Earth spirals to the sun, the faster it moves in its orbit, which technically means our year is shrinking. Days are getting shorter by fractions for now, but time isn't as stable as you once thought. Clocks need constant recalibrating. Your calendar app glitches, and at some point, leap seconds become leap hours. Some fringe physicists start whispering about gravitational time dilation, that the sun's new mass could start bending time differently for different places on Earth. People in Nepal might age more slowly than people in New York. You check your mirror for a new wrinkle and blame physics. Meanwhile, tectonic plates, those slow, lumbering slabs beneath your feet, begin to complain. Because Earth isn't just being pulled inward, it's heating from the inside out. That extra solar gravity is squeezing the planet ever so slightly, building internal pressure. Magma surges, volcanoes rumble. You see a tweet. Iceland just became lava again. No one's surprised. You remember Mount Tambora, 1815, largest volcanic eruption in recorded history, caused a year without summer. Historians still argue whether the eruption alone caused widespread famine, or if it was the cumulative failure of weather, crops, and bad leadership. Now, Tambora would be the opening act. Earth's crust is a popcorn bag in a microwave with 2 seconds left. Volcanoes begin erupting in unlikely places. Scotland, Kansas, somewhere in Brazil, a mountain that wasn't previously a volcano suddenly decides, "You know what? Let's party." And the ash, don't forget the ash. Volcanic plumes inject dust into the sky, partially blocking sunlight in some regions while the rest of the planet bakes. The irony isn't lost on you. One part of the world begs for sunblock, the other just wants to see the sun again. And yet, even as things collapse, life sort of stumbles forward. Delivery drones adapt their flight paths for new gravity. Kids start calling the heavier Earth chonk world. There's a trending dance called the orbit shimmy. You don't understand it, but you're proud of humanity's weirdness. People still go to work, somehow. Maybe because pretending it's normal makes it bearable. Your friend still hosts a weekly trivia night via Zoom. Tonight's theme? Fun facts the sun ruined. One question. What's the escape velocity of Earth now that the sun has doubled in mass? You don't know. You just sip your nearly ice water and wonder how long we can keep orbiting before we're pulled in for good. Because this isn't just climate. It's orbital destiny. You lie awake at night staring at a sky that looks too bright for midnight. The stars seem off. The moon's path is slightly skewed. You can't prove it, but you feel it like the planet itself is nervous. And somewhere deep below you, the core churns hotter, tighter. It knows gravity doesn't give second chances. It only takes, pulls, compresses, until something breaks. You wake up not gently, but with the subtle terror that only planetary instability can provide. Your glass of water is vibrating again. That's becoming a theme. You might need to switch to mugs. Heavier, less prone to dancing across the table uninvited. This time, it's not gravitational mood swings. It's the ground itself, earthquakes, dozens of them. A ripple of movement across tectonic plates that usually nap quietly under the continents. But now they're stretching, shifting, groaning like a spine out of alignment. And you know what comes with tectonic stress? Volcanoes you already met. Now it's time to meet their emotionally unavailable twin, earthquakes. San Francisco is no stranger to tremors, but the one that hit at 3:12 a.m., off the scale. Buildings that were designed to flex shatter instead. Roads buckle like cheap cardboard. In Tokyo, skyscrapers meant to sway with seismic movement begin to lean like confused dancers. Historians still argue whether the collapse of Bronze Age cities like Troy was due to conflict or the sudden chain of natural disasters. Earthquakes, storms, droughts. Sound familiar? You scroll your feed and it's a mess. Chile, Indonesia, Greece, Turkey, all shaking. Even places not known for quakes, Canada, Poland, West Africa, start reporting ground rumbles and spontaneous geysers. Somewhere in Central Asia, an ancient fault line reawakens, sighs dramatically, and splits the landscape like a loaf of bread. A shepherd films a fissure opening midfield. His sheep stare into it like it owes them money. You don't even bother watching disaster movies anymore. They're documentaries now. But it's not just the surface that's dancing. The Earth's molten core, already revved up by tidal stress and solar squeeze, is creating new mantle plumes. Think lava elevators pushing toward the crust. One bursts through in the Atlantic, forming a new island overnight. Twitter names it Sunburnt Isle. The UN sends geologists. TikTok sends influencers. Meanwhile, the magnetic field, that invisible force field shielding us from cosmic nonsense, starts to wobble. Slightly. But scientists are nervous because a messed up magnetic field isn't just bad for birds and compasses, it's bad for everything. Radiation from the now overachieving sun is punching harder than before. Usually the magnetic field deflects most of it, saving us from becoming overcooked rotisserie meats. But as the core convulses and the crust shifts, the field begins flickering in odd ways. Northern lights appear in Alabama. Compasses go rogue. Pilots panic. Remember that time the magnetic poles flipped 780,000 years ago? Historians still argue whether it caused a significant extinction event or just messed with ancient GPS. Either way, we might be due for a rerun, and the pressure is cumulative. Volcanoes, quakes, radiation. It's like Earth is trying to warn you in a dozen languages all at once. Morse code in magma, tectonic tantrums, solar screams. Meanwhile, your body begins to feel the strain. Literally, you wake up sore. Not gym sore, apocalypse sore. Your bones ache, your joints creak. Gravity's added pressure doesn't help, but it's more than that. Something is off in the air. You open your weather app, it simply says, nope. Humidity is past 90%. Oxygen levels, a little lower than usual. CO2 is on the rise, thanks to wildfires, ocean loss, and stressed out plants. Breathing feels like drinking soup through a straw. You start keeping plants in every room just to feel like someone's got your back. People in cities wear oxygen masks on high alert days, not to look cool, just to avoid passing out on escalators. And speaking of plants, welcome to the new flora fatigue. The plant kingdom is struggling. Crops are failing. Photosynthesis isn't built for double solar intensity. Leaves are crisping faster than autumn. Trees drop their canopy early, confused by the light. Vineyards die. Wine becomes scarce. France panics. Botanists argue over whether genetic editing can save the crops. Others suggest lunar greenhouses. Some fringe scientist proposes vertical gardens in old missile silos. You start reading seed catalogs like survival manuals. Animals are adapting or panicking. Migratory birds abandon their paths. Insects explode in population or vanish altogether. Bees are trying, bless them, but heat is not their friend. Neither are the radiation spikes. Somewhere, a praying mantis blinks slowly and decides, nope. You see footage of elephants walking north, not one herd, multiple, crossing roads, bridges, even borders, as if the earth whispered to them, time to move, kids. Humans follow suit. There's a new term, climate migration lanes. Millions head north. Canada builds temporary supercities. Alaska suddenly becomes very popular. The Arctic, now unfrozen, sees its first cruises ship turned housing center. Borders strain, governments squabble. Satellite images show deserts spreading like oil stains. Rivers dry up or flood unpredictably. The Nile, temperamental. The Amazon, half of it is now savanna. The Ganges, fighting off saltwater invasion. And yet, in the case house, little things stick with you. Like the way people leave cups of water on their porches for overheated birds. Or how one teacher holds virtual classes from an old cellar with wind turbines rigged from bike parts. Or the kid who designs an app that tracks safe walking routes during tectonic spikes called Shake Escape. Because people, as always, adapt in the strangest ways. Not always well, but creatively. You check your own kit. Flashlight, mask, water stash, emergency shoes. You've grown used to sleeping in layers, not for warmth, but for readiness. And every night you place one hand flat on the floor just to feel if it's humming. Because one of these days, the ground might not stop moving. The crust may buckle once and never quite settle again. And when that happens, you want to know first. Even if you can't do anything about it. At first you think it's a dream. The light outside is wrong, not morning, not afternoon, not golden hour. It's a hazy, sickly sepia, like the world forgot its color settings. You blink, half expecting an Instagram filter name to float across the sky, maybe something like Apocalypse Warm. But this isn't digital, this is the atmosphere breaking down. The sun, remember, now twice its original size, is pumping out more radiation, more particles, more everything. Earth's ozone layer, hanging in there, but only barely. It's like a tattered umbrella in a hurricane. Some patches still work. Others, not so much. You step outside for 3 minutes and come back in with a sunburn. In the shade, under a hat. SPF 100 is now the new baseline. And even then you have to reapply it like lip balm. People walk around dressed like desert commandos. Hats with flaps, reflective sunglasses, full sleeves in summer. Fashion trends now include UV index ratings. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians used actual sunscreen. Some say they mixed rice bran, jasmine, and crocodile dung to block the sun. You're suddenly grateful for your local pharmacy. No reptiles required. Meanwhile, the sky isn't just visually odd, it's chemically different. Wildfires from desiccated forests across 5 continents now pour smoke into the air nonstop. The Amazon, once a carbon sink, is now a carbon source. Australia's bushfires, annual. California, monthly. Siberia, yeah, that's on fire too. And when all that smoke and ash mixes with increased sunlight, you get solar haze, a weird twilight glow at noon, paired with a burnt smell that seeps into your clothes. You start rating days by how much the sun looks like a dying flashlight bulb. You remember reading about 1816, the year without a summer, caused by the Tambora eruption. Global temperatures dropped. Crops failed. Snow fell in June. Historians still argue whether the global famine that followed contributed to mass migrations and maybe even Mary Shelley's inspiration for Frankenstein. Now it's the opposite. It's the year without a winter and possibly without spring or fall. Seasons canceled. The sun's overbearing presence has fried the tilt-based elegance of seasonal cycles. It's either hot or scorching. A few unlucky regions experience a monsoon season from atmospheric chaos, but for most of the world, climate has boiled into a binary, burn or drown, and you're trying to adapt. Everyone is. Buildings are no longer built, they're sealed. New homes come with solar-shielded windows, internal oxygen systems, emergency cooling tanks. Old homes are being retrofitted with what people jokingly call sun armor. It's not a joke by week 3. AC units run non-stop, chugging like caffeinated elephants. Entire city grids buckle under the power draw. Rolling blackouts become routine. You plan your showers around them, like ancient rituals of heat and light. Cities are changing. Underground malls become the new hotspots, ironically cooler than anything above. People walk through subway tunnels just to stay out of the ultraviolet. And then there's the animal invasion. Species you have never seen in your life are showing up in your backyard. Giant centipedes from hotter zones. Tropic-dwelling birds flapping around your laundry. Crocodiles, confused but thriving, now enjoy the beaches of southern Spain. Scientists call it thermal migration. You call it animal roulette. Pets are confused. Cats refuse to go outside. Dogs require protective booties just to touch pavement. Zoos? Most have shut down or moved to controlled biodomes. You watch a documentary where penguins are now being bred in underground facilities in Greenland. Your neighbor starts farming mushrooms in her garage. You trade her battery packs for shiitake. Somewhere a new religion pops up. Worshippers gather at twilight, praying to the gentle darkness, hoping for longer nights. They wear robes made of reflective mylar and chant soft mantras about shadows returning. You don't join, but you appreciate the vibe. Back in the real world, science is working overtime. Satellites track the solar output obsessively. Space agencies launch emergency missions to study the sun. One of them, an unmanned probe named Perseus 2, gets closer than any before. It lasts 30 minutes before disintegrating. The last image it sends back? A blinding surface ripple, like the sun flinching. Scientists argue over its meaning. Some say it's just solar turbulence. Others whisper about unpredictable flare patterns. You just know it made the news and scared your aunt into wearing tinfoil hats again. Meanwhile, plants continue to suffer. Farmers resort to shade farming, growing crops beneath enormous nets, sometimes indoors, sometimes under solar mirrors that filter light. Tomatoes mutate into smaller, bitter fruit. Corn wilts. Wheat shrinks. Global food production drops. Food prices spike. Rice becomes a luxury item. Soy is outlawed in some regions due to water needs. Lab-grown meat becomes a staple. You try a beef-like loaf made from algae and lentil protein. Not terrible, especially with spicy ketchup, now a collector's item. Kids grow up never knowing what snow feels like. You watch a video of toddlers in Norway seeing a photo of a snowman and gasping like it's a mythical beast. Somewhere in the Alps, a final glacier melts. A lost mountain pass reemerges. Hidden behind it? Ancient tools, bronze spears, and the mummified remains of a long-forgotten traveler. Historians still argue whether this was a trading route or a sacred burial trail. Now it's a hiking hazard. And still, through the haze, through the heat, through the radiation spikes and animal migrations, life holds on. Not elegantly, not easily, but stubbornly. You sit on your balcony under a triple canopy tarp, sipping lukewarm water and watching the sky fade from brown to gold. A child across the street giggles while drawing in chalk. The picture is of the earth, with sunglasses and a frown. You smile, because somehow that's perfect. You don't notice it at first, not really. At night, the sky seems just a little emptier. The stars don't twinkle quite as much. Your favorite constellations blur at the edges, like smeared eyeliner on a sweaty evening. You think maybe it's the haze again, or eye fatigue. Or maybe it's just that the world is too loud for stargazing anymore. But it's not that. It's the atmosphere thickening, swelling with trapped gases and particulates. What used to be clear air, an elegant blend of nitrogen, oxygen, and just enough CO2 to keep plants happy, has turned into something denser. Not choking, yet, but heavy, like wearing a wet sweater over your lungs. Welcome to atmospheric overgrowth, a slow burn disaster. The sun's doubled power has supercharged everything. Ocean evaporation, wildfire spread, industrial panic responses, and worst of all, methane release. That tricky little gas that hides deep in permafrost and undersea clathrates. Yeah, it's waking up now, stretching its legs, yawning into the sky. Remember when people used to argue whether climate change was real? Now they just argue about where to move. Historians still argue whether the so-called Great Dying 250 million years ago, the Permian extinction was triggered by volcanic gas buildup or oceanic oxygen loss. Either way, the planet took a long, gasping breath and then held it for a few million years. Sound familiar? And it's not just the air, it's the clouds. They've changed. More frequent, more permanent, but not the puffy, joyful kind. These are thick, moody canopies, sullen teenagers of the atmosphere. They linger, trap heat, reflect sunlight in odd ways. Some have strange colorations now, tinged by particulate chemistry and solar interference. Scientists call it albedo drift. You call it the reason you wear polarized lenses even indoors now. In major cities, you can go days without seeing direct sun, even though it's technically blaring nonstop. The clouds act like giant sweaty filters, diffusing the light into an endless, headache-colored glow. But don't be fooled. Less sun visibility doesn't mean less solar energy. In fact, the greenhouse effect is now in turbo mode. Heat goes in, doesn't come out. You, Earth, and your unlucky fish tank are trapped together in a giant, slowly broiling casserole dish. The oceans are crying, by the way. Ocean temperatures have risen past tipping points. Coral reefs? Mostly gone. Marine biologists weep quietly into their goggles. Some species flee to deeper waters. Others float belly up, confused and done. Tuna stocks collapse. Jellyfish thrive. Why? Because they're gelatinous demons who love warm water and have no natural predators anymore. Entire beaches in the Mediterranean are closed because they look like someone spilled a pot of boiling jello into the sea. Remember when the oceans absorbed most of our carbon emissions like a hero? Now they're full, overstuffed, acidifying. Fish bones soften, shells thin, plankton populations crash. You read a headline, Oceanic oxygen minimum zones expand. You blink, then reread it. Zones, plural, whole regions of the sea turning hypoxic where fish simply can't breathe. But hey, at least you can still snorkel in a few spots. Just don't swallow the water. Above sea level, things aren't much better. In mountain ranges once capped in snow, like the Andes and the Rockies, the glaciers are vanishing. Rivers dependent on glacial melt start drying up. Indigenous communities lose not only water, but culture, identity, and ancestral rhythms. You watch a documentary on Himalayan farmers building ice stupas, man-made glaciers shaped like towers to store winter runoff. Genius stuff. Temporary, but genius. Meanwhile, urban adaptation is in full swing. Entire metro areas move underground. Think shopping centers, schools, even parts of hospitals. The above-ground zones are for solar panels, shipping drones, and pigeons on vacation. Your city opens its first climatarium, a giant glass bubble like a greenhouse in reverse, keeping heat out and fresh conditions in. There's a 2-week waiting list just to walk through the simulated 1990s garden section. You go once. It smells like lilacs and nostalgia. But even with all this tech, migration dominates the headlines. The equator is no man's land now. Inhospitable for full-time habitation. Billions move northward. Governments redraw borders like bad PowerPoint slides. Entire island nations apply for status as displaced states. The UN scrambles to reclassify what sovereignty means when your homeland is underwater. Canada, Scandinavia, Russia, they're the new frontier. But they weren't built for this many people. Tensions rise, resources dwindle. You see footage of a massive floating city breaking apart in the Pacific. Too many people packed on not enough hope. And yet, there's a strange form of resilience emerging. Tiny homes return with vengeance. Not for minimalism, just survival. Solar mirrors mounted on rooftops reflect heat back into the sky. Schools teach children how to farm mushrooms in code at the same time. High tech meets high dirt. There's a return to analog living in some places. Wind-up radios, rainwater collectors, bicycle generators. People you'd never expect are knitting cooling scarves and fermenting pickles like their grandmothers did. One town in Finland begins hosting monthly dark fests, celebrations of overcast days. No screens allowed. Just candles, board games, and group naps. Meanwhile, the sun, the real villain of this story, keeps blazing. No signs of shrinking, no cosmic mercy. You sometimes wonder what it would look like to someone watching from far away. A small planet baking unevenly under the bands of a star gone rogue. And yet, here you are, breathing thick air, filtering your water, checking your UV bracelet every 20 minutes, complaining about the heat like it's a roommate who never moves out. Surviving. Barely. You wake up drenched in sweat again. The fan's blowing, the windows are open, what's left of them, anyway, and you're still overheating like a 2007 laptop trying to run Photoshop. You swing your legs off the bed and notice the floor's warm. Not sun warm, geothermally warm. Yeah, that's new. The Earth isn't just getting roasted from the outside, it's reacting from within. The crust is restless. The sun's doubled heat hasn't just messed with the atmosphere and oceans. It's changing how the planet breathes. You're standing on a pressure cooker with a wobbly lid. Remember plate tectonics? You learned about it in school. Plates float on molten rock, shifting over millennia to form continents, mountains, oceans. Well, now those plates are twitching more than usual. Historians still argue whether the infamous year of 535 CE, the one where the sky darkened, crops failed, and empires fell, was caused by a massive volcanic eruption in Indonesia. Or two. Or maybe a space rock. Whatever it was, it reminded humanity that when the Earth hiccups, we all choke. And now, volcanoes are clearing their throats. You watch grainy live streams from Iceland, lava rivers, spilling across highways like ketchup from a dropped hot dog. Geologists talk nervously about rising magma pressures beneath Yellowstone, Vesuvius, and even Mount Fuji. They don't say eruption, they say eventuality. Even quiet regions are getting shaky. Earthquakes become monthly occurrences in places where tectonic plates used to just nod politely at each other. Meanwhile, permafrost is giving up. You hear that phrase on the news a lot now. The permafrost has given up. It's thawing like an old freezer that was never meant to be unplugged. And it's leaking. Bacteria, viruses, even prehistoric spores once sealed in icy time capsules are waking up. Scientists in hazmat suits pull samples with trembling hands. They wear double masks and talk softly about zombie microbes. You laugh at the phrase, then remember that it's not a joke. In Siberia, ancient anthrax spores infect a herd of reindeer. Kids in a nearby village get sick. A team flies in. The village gets quarantined. Again, no jokes. But it's not just viruses that are stirring. Beneath the Earth's surface, methane pockets are burping into the sky. In some Arctic regions, entire patches of ground balloon up like soufflés before collapsing into craters. Locals call them hell's potholes. You call them nature's warning labels. You remember an old biology teacher saying that methane is 25 times more potent than CO2. You didn't care then, you care now, but wait, it gets better. Ocean floors, heated by both sun-warmed water and increased geothermal activity, are starting to fracture. Deep-sea vents erupt more frequently. Fish disappear from known zones. Sonar readings show voids where once there were shoals. One submersible captures footage of glowing microbes thriving near newly formed hydrothermal chimneys. The footage goes viral. People are amazed, then terrified. Are we evolving the next dominant life form? One headline asks. Good, someone comments. Let them take over. We had our shot. Meanwhile, cities are adapting, sort of. Skyscrapers aren't just tall anymore. They're anchored, reinforced with shock-absorbing tech. Built like vertical bunkers with emergency descent pods. You see one such pod tested on live TV. It works. Kind of. Lands like a whale belly flopping onto a beach. Applause anyway. People start whispering about safe zones, not just climatically stable regions, tectonically chill ones. Maps circulate showing areas least likely to shake, flood, or melt. Montana becomes the new dream. Mongolia too. Not for the views, but for the relative stability. You know things are bad when people start measuring paradise by earthquake probability. Then comes the big one. No one's ready for it, even though everyone expected it. A major quake rocks the Pacific Rim. Tsunami sirens wail. Low-lying cities scramble. Some succeed, others vanish under 40-foot waves. The death toll is staggering. News outlets call it the sunquake. That's not scientifically accurate, but it sticks. Amid the panic, an unexpected trend rises. Ground shyness. People develop anxiety about standing on open land. Some sleep in hammocks. Others move onto floating platforms. You see an influencer build a home entirely suspended between reinforced trees. She calls it earthless living. Gains 2 million followers overnight. Underneath all this case, a quieter shift unfolds: magnetic instability. Scientists begin monitoring fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. Compasses wobble, satellites malfunction, migrating birds veer off course, landing in parking lots, or colliding with windows. Historians still argue whether the Lasham excursion, around 42,000 years ago, caused mass extinction due to a weakened magnetic field. They cite cave art, DNA bottlenecks, and sudden species drops. No consensus, but the idea lingers. Now, the idea doesn't feel theoretical anymore. You wear a GPS bracelet that updates every 10 seconds. Your phone has a solar storm alert built in, and still you feel uneasy, like the planet's whispering through its tectonic plates. I'm tired. And yet, people innovate. A startup unveils a portable magnetic shield for personal electronics. Another company offers underground home kits like IKEA bunkers with airlocks. Even hobbyists get involved, building backyard seismic monitors and crowdsourcing quake forecasts. You join an online group called Feet Off the Floor. It's mostly jokes and hammock memes, but it helps. Because despite the quakes, the pressure domes, the sinkholes, and the smoking hills, you're still here, still dodging lava headlines, still counting aftershocks, still trying to fry an egg without it happening accidentally on your sidewalk. The earth rumbles beneath you, the sun glares above you, and you exist in between, like a fly in a microwave, but somehow still buzzing. You hear it before you feel it, a low hum, almost musical, curling through the power lines, vibrating your bones just enough to make your teeth itch. It's not in your ears, it's in the air. And no, you're not going crazy. It's just the power grid falling apart. Yeah, that. You used to take electricity for granted, didn't you? Flip a switch, there's light. Push a button, there's coffee. Now the grid coughs like an old smoker with asthma. Everything's overworked. Transformers explode in bursts of electric confetti. Solar arrays short out. Batteries bloat like poisoned toads. Because you're not the only one reacting to the doubled sun. Every machine you rely on is melting. The Earth's surface is now exposed to more solar radiation than at any point in human history. Sensitive electronics fry in outdoor conditions. Cars overheat mid-drive. Satellites glitch. Even the International Space Station reports system failures, and it's wrapped in layers of shielding. Historians still argue whether the 1859 Carrington event, a massive solar storm, could have destroyed our entire modern grid if it happened today. It didn't. But this feels like Carrington in slow motion. A long, drawn-out static hiss tearing through wires and melting server rooms. And here's the twisted irony. Solar panels are useless half the day. They're designed for Earth's old light levels. Double the input, and they fry without specialized coatings. Panels warp, peel, and even combust on rooftops. Homeowners slap warning stickers on them. Do not touch, hot enough to grill cheese. Energy companies try to adapt. They build massive cooling systems, underground cable routes, quantum-shielded circuits. But it's a race against entropy, and entropy is winning with a smug little smirk. As a backup, nuclear power sees a renaissance. Old plants are reactivated. New ones spring up faster than coffee shops. France leans in hard. Japan hesitates, but joins the US. Well, half the country argues while the other half lights candles. Still, power rationing becomes the norm. Your region institutes dark hours, enforced blackouts from 2 to 6 a.m. You learn to charge everything before bed. Flashlights are back in fashion. Candlelight dinners are no longer romantic, they're just dinner. Oddly, people begin to relearn the night. You adjust your routines, screens go dimmer, neighbors chat more, sharing solar blankets and cold packs. Kids play with glow-in-the-dark chalk. Someone opens a manual movie theater that projects silent films using hand-cranked reels. It sells out every night. But let's not pretend things are quaint. The real chaos happens in data centers. Massive buildings, once humming quietly with infinite cloud storage comfort, now melt down weekly. Cooling costs skyrocket. Servers crash. Lost emails are the least of it. Medical records, financial transactions, government archives. Poof. Your favorite streaming service goes offline for a week. People riot. Not over politics, not over food, over missing season 7. Entire countries began nationalizing internet access. Others cut off external connections, entirely digital fortresses to protect unstable infrastructure. The internet splits into isolated archipelagos. It's no longer the World Wide Web. It's the world fragmented forum. Meanwhile, magnetic storms become routine. They don't announce themselves. They just show up, short-circuiting satellites, knocking out GPS, and resetting clocks like mischievous ghosts. Planes are grounded more often now. Pilots don't trust the instruments. You watch footage of one flight crew landing via compass and pure grit. Amid this, the black market for analog tech explodes. Cassette players, VHS tapes, rotary phones, they're retro gold. You hear rumors of a Cold War-era ham radio network resurfacing across Alaska and parts of Eastern Europe. No one can confirm it. That's the point. Back on the ground, batteries become currency. Not money, not crypto. Actual, physical batteries. You trade 6 AA's for a half hour on a shared air conditioner at the community cooling pod. The guy ahead of you trades a car battery for 2 bags of ice and a warm hug. Some people go full survivalist. They rig up treadmills to generators. Others pedal bikes for enough juice to charge their phones. In one viral video, a teenager in Buenos Aires powers an entire LED light string by riding laps on a stationary bike for 12 hours. The caption just says, "For Grandma's birthday." And then there are the power pirates. You know, the type people who rig illegal connections to still functioning nodes, stealing volts like urban vampires. They build camouflage panels to hide their cables. One group calls itself the AC Ninjas. Another just scrawls YOLO on the sidewalk. Some cities try radical solutions. Kinetic sidewalks. Piezoelectric tiles that absorb your footsteps to charge local lights. It's whimsical at first. Kids jump to light up squares. Then serious. People are assigned foot quotas. Walk or the lights go out. But it's not all patchwork desperation. A few breakthroughs start glimmering. Scientists in Norway develop a prototype thermal siphon grid system that stores heat underground by day and releases it at night as power. It works, for now. Other teams test quantum batteries with near-instant recharge speeds. Promising, but still science fiction for most. You notice a slow cultural pivot. People talk less about growth, more about balance. Energy budgeting becomes a lifestyle. Apps track your consumption like a fitness band for your house. Your neighbor brags about staying under 1.0 kilowatt a day like it's a diet. You start sleeping earlier, waking with the sun. You cook with rocket stoves, boil water in black tubes. Let clothes dry in the wind because dryers are considered criminal now. And somehow in this fragile mess, you adapt. You learn to live with flickering lights and the occasional solar flare warning. You memorize your route to the nearest hand-pumped well. You get good at reading analog watches. Your phone is patched with shielding foil and kept in a cooling pouch like a baby koala. The sun burns on, the grid stumbles, but you're still blinking in the glow, powering on. The sky looks off, not red, not orange, just wrong. The blue has faded to a metallic wash, like someone spilled diluted milk over a steel sheet. The clouds aren't fluffy anymore. They smear across the heavens like exhausted brushstrokes. You squint up, but your eyes start to sting. Sunglasses? No help. The sunlight is different now. You've entered the era of atmospheric collapse. Okay, not complete collapse. But the upper layers of the atmosphere, the stratosphere and mesosphere, are thinning. The sun, having doubled in size and ferocity, doesn't just cook the ground, it peels the sky. Ozone's trying to hang on, bless its tired little molecules. But the ultraviolet radiation has tripled. The protective layer is fraying like a moth-eaten sweater. Scientists had warned us for decades, protect the ozone. And now that whisper has turned into a funeral dirge. Historians still argue whether the 1980s Montreal Protocol, the treaty banning ozone-depleting chemicals, actually saved humanity from a UV apocalypse. Some say yes. Others claim it was already too late. Either way, you're wearing SPF 300 now and reapplying every 10 minutes. Speaking of which, sunscreen is now $1 billion industry, but it's gone weird. You've got sunblock powders, thermal sprays, even edible UV pills. One influencer markets crocodile dung-inspired organic lotion, claiming it's based on ancient Egyptian recipes. You laugh until it works. The atmosphere isn't just letting in more UV, it's letting heat out more slowly. The troposphere, the part you live in, is like a soggy wool blanket now. It traps heat close to Earth. Night no longer offers relief. Temperatures remain in the high 90s, even at midnight. Cities start glowing in thermal imaging, like radioactive anthills. You lie awake at 2 a.m., sticking to your sheets, surrounded by fans, half naked, wondering how long before people start moving underground full-time. Spoiler, they already have. Underground developments are trending. Subterranean malls, homes, even playgrounds. Some folks use old bunkers, others build new ones. The wealthy install vertical farms and light systems mimicking sunrise. You, meanwhile, have a basement and a few battery lanterns. Still cooler than upstairs. You step outside around dawn and immediately notice the trees. They're different. Not just from the heat, but from radiation stress. Leaves curl inward. Some change color, randomly blotchy reds in summer, pale yellows in spring. Photosynthesis falters. Farmers lose crops. Wheat fields vanish from Kansas. Corn withers in Iowa. You read a fringe paper claiming the Great Dimming will wipe out traditional agriculture in a decade. It goes viral. People panic buy hydroponic kits. One guy builds a lettuce wall on his porch and becomes a minor TikTok god. Meanwhile, air quality collapses. Smog wasn't supposed to be a big deal in rural areas. Now it is. The combination of heat, pollutants, and volatile organic compounds creates a permanent yellow haze. Children develop persistent coughs, asthma spikes, the rich buy wearable air filters. The rest of you? You wrap scarves and hope for a breeze. Some governments try atmospheric geoengineering. They release aerosols into the stratosphere to reflect sunlight volcanic mimicry, they call it. A nod to Mount Pinatubo's 1991 eruption, which briefly cooled the planet. It works, sort of, but comes with side effects: acid rain, weird cloud formations, and a new flavor of conspiracy theory. You overhear someone in a cafe muttering about cloud herders and sun tax. You leave quietly. Despite the mess, a strange kind of sky-watching culture takes root. People start documenting the daily sky mood. Apps appear where users post photos and rate the day: hazy with a hint of doom, ultraviolet frown, nuclear tangerine. You contribute one called Sad Lasagna, and it gets featured. Sunsets go viral too. With more particles and more heat, the sky erupts in colors no one's ever seen before: greens, violets, even rare crimson spirals. Scientists warn it's a sign of air distortion, but you can't help snapping a photo anyway. You get 30,000 likes, a bittersweet moment, and then lightning changes. With the altered atmosphere, bolts grow longer, louder, hotter. One storm over the American Midwest produces 800 strikes in under 10 minutes. It's dubbed Thor's Tantrum. You watch the video in awe. Then you unplug everything in your home, just in case. Clouds become unpredictable. They roll in low, crackle with silent energy, then vanish. In South America, dry storms start hundreds of wildfires. Australia battles a storm system with blue lightning, a phenomenon once rare, now quarterly. At night, the stars blur. The heat distortions warp the view. Telescopes recalibrate constantly. Astronomers grumble that the atmosphere is no longer a friendly lens, it's a drunk filter. Observatories move to Antarctica or shut down entirely. You glance up and realize you missed the sky. Not this one, the old one, the playful clouds, the endless blue, the polite stars. Now it's all heavy and hostile, like a roommate who slams cabinets just to make a point. You think about ancient myths, sky gods, sun chariots, thunderbirds. Makes more sense now. If you lived 5,000 years ago, you'd also assume the heavens were angry. Historians still argue whether the Bronze Age collapse around 1200 BCE was triggered in part by environmental instability, droughts, famines, sky anomalies. And now we might be living through a modern echo. But even now, in this boiling, glowing, coughing world, people find beauty. A school teacher in Delhi teaches her class to paint new skies. A blind artist in Morocco creates textured murals based on daily air pressure. A rooftop poet in Seoul writes haikus about the shapes of dying clouds. And you still look up. Not every day, but sometimes. Sometimes the sky isn't just a warning, it's a mirror, reflecting not just the light from the sun, but the resilience of the world below. Even when that mirror is cracked, smudged, and glowing a little too hard, you forget what snow looks like, not because you've never seen it, but because no one has for years. Even the poles, once the frosty extremes of the planet, now resemble a mildly depressing beachfront with the world's worst Wi-Fi. The ice is gone. Not melting, not shrinking, gone. The Arctic Ocean is navigable year-round now. Countries argue over new shipping lanes, oil access, and who gets to name the last lonely iceberg. Norway insists it looks like a goat. Canada disagrees, it's obviously a dolphin. But jokes aside, the cryosphere is finished. You see old documentaries, snow leopards padding through Himalayan blizzards, polar bears leaping between flows, and feel like you're watching extinct fiction. The Himalayan glaciers that once fed Asia's greatest rivers receded so far back they're practically shy. Historians still argue whether the 21st century's snowpocalypse winters were signs of warming chaos or natural variation. At the time, people mocked the idea that global warming could cause freezing, but now no one's confused because winter, she packed up and left. That shift does more than break sledding traditions. It rewires the water cycle. Without seasonal snowpack to slowly release meltwater, entire ecosystems are dehydrated. Rivers run wild in spring, then vanish by midsummer. Farmers call it flash flooding, followed by drought. You walk past a riverbed near your town. Last year it surged. This year it's cracked, dry, bones of fish embedded in the mud like sad fossils from a failed aquarium. To compensate, governments attempt glacial engineering. In Greenland, teams try to cover remaining ice with reflective materials, space blankets for mountains. Others seed clouds to encourage snowfall. But snow doesn't want to fall anymore. Not in this heat. Snow's gone on permanent vacation. Meanwhile, global sea levels? Yeah, they're rising. Not slowly, not politely. You wake up one morning to the news. A chunk of the West Antarctic ice sheet, roughly the size of Florida, has sloughed off like a giant icy scab. The ocean hiccups. Coastal cities brace. Within a year, entire neighborhoods vanish. Miami becomes a swampy theme park for disaster tourists. Jakarta relocates its capital. Parts of London build mega dikes. Venice? It floats, but barely. People kayak through former subway stations. Rats adapt faster than anyone. And here's the kicker. Salt water doesn't play nice. It invades freshwater aquifers. It corrodes pipes, destroys infrastructure, poisons farmland. One farmer in Bangladesh holds up a withered rice stalk and just shakes his head on live TV. The sea, he says, is not our friend anymore. In the United States, a quiet migration begins. From the coasts to the center, millions relocate, abandoning condos, beachfronts, entire counties. Cities like Tulsa and Minneapolis explode in population. Land prices skyrocket. Meanwhile, insurance companies back out of everything. You can't even get flood insurance for a fish tank these days. But it's not just the sea. Humidity becomes lethal. The combination of heat and moisture hits a threshold where your body can't sweat effectively. Scientists call it the wet bulb limit. Humans can't survive past it for more than 6 hours, even in the shade, even naked, even with water. These zones where wet bulb temps rise above survivable levels spread fast. Southeast Asia, the Gulf Coast, parts of South America. You hear about climate migration caravans, families walking thousands of miles, chasing breathable air and tolerable nights. You think of the Dust Bowl migrations from the 1930s, but worse. Because now no one's sure where the safe zones even are. Some communities get creative. Floating cities, tethered like giant lily pads, begin testing off Indonesia and the Maldives. Others build stilt homes, water harvesting towers, even mobile villages. Nomadism is back in style, with Wi-Fi packs and battery banks slung over camels. Meanwhile, food security becomes a guessing game. You used to walk into a grocery store, pick any fruit, anytime. Blueberries in December, avocados year-round. Now, seasonality is back with a vengeance. Climate zones have shifted. Wine grapes grow in Norway. Bananas rot in Mexico. Historians still argue whether the global dependence on monocultures wheat, corn, soy was brilliance or hubris. In retrospect, it feels like putting all your seeds in one basket. And that basket caught fire. Famine doesn't hit like it used to. There's no sudden snap. It's more of a creeping erosion. Calories vanish, prices double, then triple. Fast food becomes gourmet, rice becomes status. The rich hoard vertical farm plots. The poor queue for algae cubes. And yet, some humans, being the marvelous cockroaches we are, start building resilient food networks. Hyper-local farms, rooftop aquaponics, even lab-grown protein printers. You bite into a 3D printed steak and shrug. Tastes like chicken. Because everything does now. Social structure shifts, food becomes culture again. You trade mushroom jerky with your neighbor for sweet potatoes grown under purple LEDs. Someone in your building makes cricket paste brownies. You gag the first time. You ask for seconds the third time. The sun is still growing louder, harsher. But underground, in basements, in converted train tunnels, green things grow. Not many, not fast, but enough to keep trying. And you start to find rhythms again. Not with the seasons, they're toast, but with the sun cycles. You plan your day in heat waves, not hours. You check apps that track UV flare-ups and advise when to walk your dog. You wear reflective cloaks and carry heat shields like the new umbrella. It's not easy. Nothing is. But you're still here. You still look at the horizon every morning and think, not drowned, not yet. And for now, that's enough. You wake up to silence, real silence. No birds, no wind, no rustling trees. Just the hum of your indoor air recycler, gently purring like a content robot cat. Outside, the world is still, not peaceful, just waiting. And then the insects start screaming. Okay, not screaming, but something close. The insect population has exploded. With the sun doubling in size and changing the climate game entirely, many large animals haven't adapted fast enough. Mammals, birds, amphibians, too slow to cope. But insects? They're partying. Hard. In fact, this might be the golden age of bugs. Termites grow longer. Mosquitoes evolve heat resistance. And don't even ask about the ants. Some of them glow now. Historians still argue whether the plagues of locusts in ancient Egypt were weather-linked or punishment myths. You don't care anymore. You just want your neighborhood back from the 10,000 grasshoppers that claimed your balcony last Thursday. Insects don't just survive, they thrive in chaos. A single queen termite starts building a towering mound in your community garden. Kids gather to watch like it's a slow-motion nature documentary. You overhear one of them whisper, "That's our new god." Someone makes a joke about eating it. But it's not really a joke because bugs are food now. You've got cricket flour in your pantry, roasted mealworms as snacks, silkworm protein shakes on tap. It started as a necessity. Animal farms just couldn't keep up. Too hot, too dry. But now it's culinary. A viral food channel launches a bug appetit series. Scorpion tacos, spider tempura. You try a cockroach mousse. It's oddly creamy. You don't ask why. Meanwhile, higher up the food chain, things get weird. Animals don't just migrate, they mutate. Some species shrink. A nod to the ancient phenomenon called Bergmann's rule, hotter climates often favor smaller animals. Others get more aggressive. You read about heat-resistant wasps terrorizing commuters in Tokyo. Someone calls them flying spite. But it's not all horror. A tiny, near-extinct frog from South America evolves faster than expected and makes a comeback. Biologists lose their minds. The little amphibian becomes a global mascot for post-climate hope. Plushies sell out everywhere. Still, extinctions happen daily. There's no ceremony, just silence. A park ranger posts a photo of the last clouded leopard seen in the wild. You stare at it too long and feel something crack inside you. Not grief, just tired awe. Ecosystems buckle under the changes. Keystone species vanish. Coral reefs bleach into ghosts in cities. Forests collapse into boneyards of standing dead trees. Some areas are so dry, wood doesn't even rot, it just petrifies in place. And yet, life persists, sort of. Cities develop new relationships with nature. You spot solar-powered flower beds attached to rooftops, sprouting genetically modified plants that require almost no water. In one district, locals release bioluminescent fireflies nightly, just to remember what stars used to feel like. There's beauty in adaptation. It's just unfamiliar. One evening, you take a walk through a repurposed rail tunnel filled with genetically engineered moss. It smells faintly of mint and ozone. Kids run barefoot across its soft green floor. For a moment, you forget the surface is 118 degrees Fahrenheit and rising. That's another thing, you've adapted. You wear cooling fabrics that adjust to body temperature. Your home has radiant shielding, hydroloop filters, and an AI that tells you when to breathe deeply and when to stay absolutely still. Your walls sweat to cool you down. Your shoes charge from kinetic energy. You've become a techno-cactus. And it works. But even the best personal gadgets can't save public infrastructure. Bridges warp under thermal expansion. Roads melt, literally. Your car tires once sank into a sticky patch of freeway like it was asphalt soup. Cities start building elevated mesh paths, spiderweb-like walkways above the heat-slicked streets. The rich? They fly everywhere. Airships make a comeback slow, solar, silent, floating palaces drifting lazily over the scorched earth. A few even offer sky funerals, where ashes are scattered into the upper atmosphere. Pricey, but poetic. Meanwhile, Earth's magnetic field starts acting up. Scientists blame solar activity. The bigger sun means stronger solar storms. One major flare knocks out half the satellite grid. GPS becomes useless for weeks. People get lost on their own street corners. Old school maps trend for the first time in decades. You buy one, just in case. Historians still argue whether the 1859 Carrington event, a solar flare that caused telegraph systems to explode, was a warning we failed to learn from. Looking around, it seems like maybe, probably, yeah. But there are survivors, not just human ones. You notice raccoons thriving in heat-locked suburbs, drinking from rooftop condensation units. Squirrels grow slicker fur and shorter tails. Urban pigeons? Unstoppable. They begin nesting in the hollow cores of solar towers. Nature is improvising hard. Scientists start referring to the emerging biosphere as Neo-Gaia, a stitched-together patchwork of heat-hardened life forms, biotech hybrids, and rewilded zones with unpredictable rules. Some of it's synthetic, some of it's accidental, all of it's alive, and there's something weirdly comforting about that. One night, you sit outside in your heat-shielded hammock. The sun has long dipped below the horizon, but its memory lingers in the warmth of every surface. A cricket chirps from the rooftop garden. You sip mint-infused desalinated water. In that moment, you realize life hasn't ended. It's just changed outfits. Ditch the blue jeans for something more reflective, perhaps UV repellent. But it's still dancing. And as long as something moves in the dirt, swims in the filtered tide, or flies through the superheated air, the story continues. Even if the next chapter belongs to bugs, the night sky no longer looks familiar. Stars are there, but fainter now, drowned out by the swollen blaze of the sun even after it slips beneath the horizon. You miss darkness, real darkness, the kind where galaxies used to twinkle like secrets waiting to be told. Now you squint upward and everything feels washed out, like a dream someone tried to remember and drew over with highlighter. And the moon? It glows a little redder these days. Less of a romantic spotlight, more of a distant witness, quietly judging the mess we've made. But as the sun doubled in size, so did humanity's obsession with escape. Not emotionally, not spiritually, literally. Space agencies, startups, billionaire brain children, everybody's looking up. Mars colonization, once a quirky PR stunt, is now on every politician's re-election platform. There's talk of terraforming, as if a few machines can turn a freezer into Florida. Historians still argue whether the Apollo missions were science-driven or Cold War flexing. Today, the motivations aren't much clearer. Half survival, half vanity. You suspect it's mostly the latter. Still, rockets launch more frequently now. The skies are busy with cargo haulers, oxygen pods, and frozen embryos headed toward the red planet. SpaceX, or whatever it's called now, releases a slick trailer showing kids in Martian gravity bouncing around like popcorn. They wear matching jumpsuits and suspiciously clean boots. You're skeptical, but curious. Meanwhile, Earth's orbit becomes crowded. Thousands of satellites, old and new, form a glimmering belt of buzzing activity. Some track the sun, others monitor sea rise. A few just play 1980s synth music for no reason anyone can explain. It's oddly comforting, and then, inevitably, the clutter turns dangerous. One collision triggers a Kessler cascade, a chain reaction of space junk smashing into other space junk. It's like orbital bumper cars, but with million-dollar payloads and zero room for error. For weeks, debris showers the upper atmosphere. GPS flickers, global internet hiccups. A satellite crashes into the Arctic and vaporizes on impact. A conspiracy subreddit claims it was intentional. You don't dismiss it as quickly as you used to. Down on Earth, things don't feel calmer. With so many looking outward, earthbound infrastructure is neglected. You notice potholes turning into craters. Power grids flicker when solar flares hit. Public transport becomes unreliable, except for bikes, which make a comeback with solar-charged assist motors and suspiciously smug riders. You ride one. You get smug too. Governments start offering sun resilience bonds. They promise improved cooling centers, new desalination hubs, and underground transit tunnels. Half of them never materialize. The other half launch with ribbon cuttings and a gentle drizzle of corruption. But let's be real, your attention's shifting too, because something's happening to time, or at least your sense of it. Days blur. The sun rises earlier, stays longer, bakes harder. You sleep during peak daylight hours. Work shifts slide into twilight. Time zones get redefined, not by longitude, but by temperature curves. People say things like, let's meet during the 80 Kdrf window. Clocks mean less than they used to. Thermometers rule now. You start organizing life by heat blocks. Is it in the 90s yet? Has the UV index dropped below lethal? You don't plan events by calendar anymore. You plan by shadows and wind speed. And speaking of wind, it's different now. Jet streams have gone rogue. They no longer follow polite, predictable routes. Weather patterns swirl like tantrums. A storm once spun for 6 weeks in the Atlantic before deciding to make landfall in Portugal. People named it Kevin. Kevin was not kind. Historians still argue whether climate chaos began in the 20th or 21st century, but what's certain is by now it's permanent. Insurance companies have created a new category, act of sun. It includes solar flare damage, atmospheric collapses, and something they vaguely call hyperweather. You try not to ask what that last one is. You remember watching sci-fi as a kid, imagining a future of sleek buildings, hover cars, and helpful androids. Instead, you got heat domes, bug burgers, and wearable sweat filters. But here's the plot twist: humans evolve too. Not biologically. That takes too long. But culturally, mentally, spiritually, you see it happening. People start practicing solar mindfulness. It sounds ridiculous at first, guided meditations on heat, visualizations of golden expansion, but the calming effect is real. You try one during a blackout. It helps. Communities build shade sanctuaries, open plazas with reflective membranes, cold mist emitters, and hammocks strung between sunproof trees. Elders gather there to tell stories. Kids learn to climb trees that don't burn your hands. You join a night choir that sings lullabies in 6 languages. Not because it changes anything, just because voices in harmony still mean something. There's a new calendar system in the works, based on solar flare cycles, not months. The year 2057, that's now known as Flare Wave 7. You joke that it sounds like a techno album, but secretly, you kind of love it. Even rituals shift. Birthdays are less important than cool days, random breaks in the heat where everyone throws spontaneous festivals. People light candles not to warm, but to honor light itself, now that it's no longer gentle. And still, deep underground or high above, humans keep searching. They drill beneath Antarctica, hunting for buried lakes untouched by warmth. They send probes to Saturn's moons. A rumor spreads that an exoplanet in the TRAPPIST system shows signs of algae. Probably false. Still hopeful. You fall asleep one night, curled near a slowly rotating fan, thinking, Maybe Earth isn't just dying. Maybe it's molting, shedding her old skin, burning off the excess, becoming something else. Not better. Not worse. Just next. And whatever that next is, you'll face it like always, with dry humor, sunblock, and maybe, just maybe, hope. You don't remember the last time you saw a blue sky, not the pale, bleached dome you now call daylight, but the real deal cloud-puffed, cerulean, endless. These days, the sky wears a permanent sunscreen, a grayish shimmer from aerosols, smog, and tiny reflective particles shot up by geoengineering experiments. Yes, geoengineering is real now. After decades of debate, humanity gave up on subtlety. Giant cannons in the stratosphere launch sulfur particles to reflect sunlight, mimicking the effect of volcanic eruptions. It works, kind of. The temperature dips a few degrees. People celebrate, but rain patterns change, crops suffer, rivers shrink. Historians still argue whether the eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815, the year without a summer, was a natural catastrophe or a test run for our climate future. You wonder if anyone will say that about this era one day, and or if one day is even guaranteed. Back on the ground, you dodge microstorms that form in minutes and vanish just as quickly. Clouds spit steam, not rain. You miss real weather, seasons. That subtle shift when leaves used to blush in the fall or the first day you could see your breath. But seasonal markers are useless now. Instead, the year is divided by solar behavior. Spike days, quiet days, and the dreaded pulse waves, random surges of UV radiation that fry electronics and crisp, unshielded skin in seconds. You once stepped outside without checking the forecast and scorched your eyelashes. Lesson learned. Fashion adjusts as it always does. Heat cloaks, UV reactive lenses, cooling tattoos that shimmer when you're overheating. You wear a hat the size of a patio umbrella and no one bats an eye. You miss jeans, but not enough to melt for them. Still, in all this madness, art doesn't die. It mutates. A collective of desert artists begins painting with thermochromic pigments, colors that shift with heat. Their murals pulse with life, changing mood as temperatures rise and fall. One piece depicts a melting clock tower wrapped in sunflowers. It's oddly cheerful. Someone starts a trend called solar music, composed with instruments tuned to the harmonic frequencies of the sun's electromagnetic pulses. You attend a concert streamed from an observatory on a mountaintop. It's dissonant, haunting, and beautiful. Kids grow up never knowing a normal swab. To them, this blazing monster above is just part of the furniture. Like gravity or disappointment, they name it weird things: Glowzilla, the face melter, Uncle Crisp. One 12-year-old launches a webcomic where the sun is a misunderstood anti-hero, just trying to be loved without killing everyone. It goes viral. Merch follows. You buy a plushie that says, "Sorry I burned your leg," when squeezed. And somewhere deep inside you, you start laughing again. Not because things are okay, but because humans are still absurdly human. You walk through a heat-shielded mall and see a food stall offering retro snacks. They serve refrigerated chocolate, cold ramen, and frozen grapes luxuries. Once, now rare and sacred, the line wraps around the atrium. One woman faints in joy at her first ice cream since the rationing began. A teenage boy drops his vanilla cone, and three strangers immediately offer to share theirs. You see more kindness now. Shared heat has a way of softening people. Even politics shift. With global climate migration exploding, borders blur. Not officially, of course. There are still walls and laws, but reality stretches them. Cities become polyglot havens. Cultures tangle like vines. You hear lullabies in 7 languages from your apartment window on any given night. A new philosophy emerges, called sun resilience ethos. It's not a religion exactly, more of a way to navigate despair. Its core idea: if you survive today, you've already changed the future. No temples, just acts of maintenance and mercy. You like that. You start tracking your cool moments, tiny flashes of calm or joy. A breeze through a cracked window, ice cubes clinking in metal, a neighbor's kid handing you a handmade paper fan, scribbled with "Stay alive" in glitter. You add it to your altar of strange treasures. a melted shoe from Heatwave 5, a seed that sprouted in dry soil, a faded photo of the ocean when it was still blue. And then one morning it rains. Real rain, thick, smelling of petrichor and forgotten forests. It steams as it hits the sun-baked earth, rising in fragrant clouds. You step outside. Others do too. No one says anything. You just stand there, mouths open, arms wide. It's a baptism, a reminder, a miracle. Historians will probably argue if it was natural or another side effect of geoengineering. You don't care. You let the water hit your face and close your eyes. It's the first cool sensation you have felt in months. Later that night, you dry off in your hammock, listening to the wind chime from your solar-shaded porch. It rings once, twice, then silence. You think about the insects still chirping, the cities still humming, the stars still hiding, and the sun looming, relentless, alive. But so are you. Maybe that's enough. The desert is spreading. You see it in the cracks that vein across abandoned highways, in the sand that slips beneath your door frame, no matter how tightly you seal it. Once forested hills are now dusty mounds. The last tree in your neighborhood died a dignified death, wrapped in prayer flags and misted with recycled tears. But you still water your rooftop garden, not because it grows much anymore, just some stunted basil and a defiant aloe, but because it feels normal. Rituals matter when the world stops making sense. At night, you check the sensors on your walls. They glow green. Habitable. It's the lowest bar imaginable, but you take it. The UV index has been stable for 3 days. People dare to whisper a word not heard in years. Reprieve. You walk to the communal plaza. It's lit by algae-fed lanterns, flickering softly. The air is thick, but breathable. You pass murals of sun worshippers and sun survivors, scenes that blur myth and memory. You wonder if future historians will see this time as apocalyptic or transitional. Historians still argue whether the collapse of ancient civilizations was due to war, plague, or climate. The truth is always murkier, multi-causal, nuanced. You smile, imagining a future archaeologist digging through your toaster and drawing sweeping conclusions. In the plaza, an old woman tells children a story about a sky that turned pink one morning and stayed that way for a week. It's half fact, half fantasy, but the kids hang on every word. They don't ask for proof. They ask for hope. You remember when hope felt corny. Now it feels necessary. And science, it trudges forward. Teams in Iceland are building sun tunnels, mirror arrays that redirect light underground, warming geothermal communities in reverse seasons. Elsewhere, cloud farms float in the stratosphere, seeding microclimates beneath them. One even worked over Nairobi for 4 whole days. On the moon, the first human greenhouse was declared operational. The spinach grew sideways. Nobody cared. It was green. It was alive. Even space tourism makes a wobbly return. Vacation in Umbra. Billboards promise shade, calm, and peace at a new orbital hotel. You laugh. Who vacations in Earth's shadow? Turns out everyone, if they can afford it. You can't. But your niece wins a lottery seat and sends back a postcard. It reads, "No heat, no glare, just stars." You pin it on your fridge. It covers a melted magnet from better times. Still, you keep going, because the sun, now bloated and blazing, hasn't stopped giving. Yes, it scalds. Yes, it warps. But it also powers everything. The new grids hum with stolen fire. Solar plants stretch across continents, pulsing with energy that used to vanish into air. Your toaster works again. Your cooling mass charges in 15 minutes. Someone even built a sun cinema projecting vintage films onto screens made of light-diffusing mist. You watch a black and white romance from the 1940s and cry when they kiss in the rain. That night, you fall asleep to the lull of a fan. You think about the sun as both villain and muse, a paradox hanging in the sky. You remember that fringe scientist who once claimed solar flares could alter consciousness. You used to roll your eyes. Now, you just shrug, because despite everything, people still love, still dance, still fix leaky roofs and write dumb poetry and teach their kids to count the stars even when there are none to see. And maybe that's the most human thing of all, not resisting change, but growing strange and radiant inside of it. Word count, 1016, wind down, 300 words. And now here we are, drifting at the very edge of our solar-scorched story. You lie back, letting the quiet take over, the gentle whir of your fan mimicking a forgotten breeze. The world beyond your walls continues glowing, groaning, growing. But for now, all that matters is this hush. Your breath slows. The heat, it's still there, but dull now, more like a memory than a threat. A soft warmth behind your eyelids, like the last light through a curtain. You think of the people still awake, some reading by solar lamp, some whispering in hammocks, some dreaming already. All of them survivors. All of them stargazers, even without stars. You picture the sun not the monster that doubled in size, but something smaller, older, quieter. Just a dot in a child's drawing. Yellow crayon, smiling face. Funny how we reduce what we fear, so we can hold it in our hands. Maybe you hum a song, maybe your mind drifts towards someone you love, or someone you lost. Or maybe, mercifully, your thoughts simply slow until they disappear altogether. The night wraps around you like a blanket from before, and whatever tomorrow brings, remember this. You made it through the heat, you adapted, you endured, and in that quiet resilience, since you became part of a new mythology, one written not in fire but in whispers. So rest now, breathe. You're safe in this moment. The world can wait. Good night.